I know trail running can be a little intimidating for a lot of runners, but it doesn't have to be. In this video, I want to show you that trail running can be easy. And so, why don't you come with me on a short little trail run? So the first thing I want you to remember about trail running is that it's still just running. It's not some whole different sport where you need all kinds of new gear and apparel and equipment to participate in. In fact, I am actually wearing road shoes to run on the trails. I know that might be sacrilege to a lot of folks, but I'm not running very technical trails right now, and I don't really need the aggressive lugs or sole of a typical trail shoe. So I just don't have one. And if you don't have trail shoes, it's probably just fine. Unless you are running up some incredibly steep, gnarly, really technical terrain, maybe in the mountains of Colorado, you probably don't need trail shoes. Now, when you first get out on the trails, if this is your first time or you've only maybe done it a couple times, I want you to remember that it's probably going to be slower than any running you've done on the road. And that's because trail running typically has three things that make it a little bit more different than road running. Thing number one is the technical nature of the terrain. I'm not really running too much technical terrain right now, but it certainly is present on a lot of trails. The other thing is that you're probably going to be turning a lot more. And just like if you're a track fan, indoor track is a little bit slower than outdoor track because of those turns. So if you're running on a lot of trails that have a lot of turns, unlike a road, you're going to be running just a tad bit slower. And then finally, the last thing is that the trail that you're running on probably has a little bit more undulation than the road. So you're probably going to be going up little hills up and down over and over again, and that's going to slow you down too. So instead of worrying about your pace or thinking that you're going to run similar paces on trails that you do on the roads, let's just run by effort. So if you typically go out and do your 6-mile base run at a given effort, do the same thing. Oh my God, I just saw a shadow and I thought there was someone lurking behind me. Whew. We're gonna keep going though. So if you do your normal base run at a given effort, I want you to do it at the same effort on the trails, no matter what the pace might be. Yeah, it's probably gonna be slower. That's okay. The stress on your heart and cardiovascular system is still the same. Now, if you're serious about improving your trail running ability, it's gonna be really important for you just to get on the trails and spend more time trail running. There is simply no substitute for experience and time on the trail. Sort of like that old 10,000 hour rule. You just gotta get out there and experience the trails. And for a lot of runners, that means experiencing the trails in a variety of fatigue states and a variety of intensities. So truly, if you want to master trail running, you've got to do a lot of trail running, and you've got to do a lot of it at a recovery effort, at a normal, easy base run effort, that zone 2, maybe even sneaking into zone 3 heart rate territory. But you've also got to do it when you're tired at the end of a long run, or doing some of your workouts on trails. Maybe not the ones where you're trying to run at, say, a VO2 max effort, or you're really trying to focus on pace and power. That's not possible on the trails. That can be really difficult. But a lot of workouts are possible on the trails. It depends on the trail, depends on the terrain, and you've got to be able to know how your body responds to the trails and how you navigate the technicality of the trails when you're fresh, when you're tired, and when you're running fast.
I could not make these videos without your support. So first, let me say thank you. And this video is brought to you by our very own performance training journal. I have always been in love with hard copy training journals for a few really good reasons. Number one, when I was a new runner and I started keeping an actual training journal like this, I learned so much more about the sport and myself just by that practice. It really forces you to reflect on your training, to think more deeply about what works for you, what doesn't work for you. And if you are constantly reflecting on your training, praising yourself for what's going right, planning for the future, and then looking back on what has previously worked for you, you are gonna really know yourself as a runner, and you're gonna start to make wiser decisions about your training. I also created this training journal because I want you to focus on the training metrics that actually matter. The training metrics that help you improve, get better, and progress with your running. We don't have to focus on everything. We just need to focus on what matters. I also took a lot of inspiration from professional runners that I've talked to on the Strength Running podcast. They're adamant by completing a training journal and reflecting on what works for you and actually giving yourself some praise within your journal. You're essentially completing a gratitude journal. You are building up your confidence in your own abilities over time. And when you look back on that journal before a big goal race, you are going to be reading in your own words why you're capable, why you can do this. And I can think of nothing more confidence building than an act like that. So I hope you check out the new performance training journal. It is now available on Amazon. It debuted as the #4 new release in the running category, and I could not be more proud of it. So thank you again for subscribing to the Strength Running YouTube channel, and I hope you enjoy the Performance Training Journal.
Next, if you want to actually get good at racing on trails, it can be really helpful to start strength training, to start doing some drills, and maybe even some plyometrics and other forms of agility training so that you develop a little bit more coordination and athleticism. Trail running is admittedly more difficult than road running because of the technical terrain, the hills, and all those turns and undulations that you're going to experience. The runner who can navigate that terrain efficiently, economically, is just going to be a better runner on that terrain. So getting in some strength training, doing some drills and general work to improve your athleticism so that you can just glide over that terrain is going to make you a lot faster on the trails too. Now, when you are out on the trails, I want you to be mindful of the type of shoe that you're wearing, because a lot of folks love the modern running shoe, which has a fairly high stack height. I was just on the Believe in the Run podcast, The Drop, talking about how I'm a little bit cranky about modern running shoes because they do tend to have a fairly high stack height. There's just a lot of foam underneath your foot. And if the trail that you're running on is fairly technical, that high stack height might increase the instability that you feel out there on the trail. So in other words, you're just gonna not feel too stable out there when you're running because you don't have as much ground feel. You can't really feel the small rocks and roots and all those little things on the trail that might potentially trip you up. And it's really important to be able to feel the ground to a certain extent. So I'm a little wary of beginners wearing very high stack height shoes on a more technical terrain. Now, this isn't something that you necessarily have to worry about too much, but I just want you to keep it in the back of your mind that if you're going to be running over a lot of roots or rocks or any kind of instability, a shoe that's very high off the ground is only going to increase that stability. Finally, I want to give you a very specific suggestion. And this is a tool that I've been using for the last couple of years to not only help improve my running form and reduce my injury risk, but it's an amazing balance proprioception tool that's really going to help you on some gnarly terrain if you're out there trail running. And that is the MOBO board. Now, I was a little bit surprised the first time I tried the MOBO board because it really is just this circle on these two rocker fins, and it just doesn't seem very hard to balance on it, but I was very wrong. This is a tool invented by physical therapist and author Jay DeSherry. Just had him on the Strength Running podcast. He's fantastic. And the idea is to improve how your muscles move, because of course it's very valuable to be strong, but are you using that strength in the right way? Are you able to have a sound kinetic chain from your hip all the way down to your ankle? Really important for trail runners navigating technical terrain. And the way the MOBO board works is that there's a hole where your little toes should be. And so you have to drive your big toe into the board. And it really reinforces that strong pronation into the board the way that we should be moving. So this is really fantastic at reinforcing good running form, reducing your injury risk, improving balance and proprioception, and really improving your ability to navigate that technical terrain, because there's a lot of times where you've got to be hopping from one rock to another. And since running is really just a series of one-legged hops, you've got to make sure that you have the balance to do that and to do it economically. So you can check out the MOBO board. There's a link in the description. You can use code STRENGTHRUN10 to save yourself 10%. I own one of these boards, I use it, and I love it. All right, runners, I hope your trail running is going well. If you are new to trail running, have fun with it, enjoy the sights and sounds. I know that when I first started running trails when I was in high school, I just loved the experience, and it made the miles tick by a lot faster. We don't have to make trail running into this very special, new, unique sport that we need all this new gear for. And if we're a road runner, we can't get on the trails. We can get on any surface and thrive. Use these tips to become a better trail runner today. I hope they're helpful for you.